I never imagined that walking into a courtroom could feel like stepping into a battlefield. The air was thick with tension, my hands trembling, and my heart pounding like it might just give out. All around me, people whispered, some stared, some smirked. But it was her I couldn't take my eyes off. The woman who had spent months trying to make my life a living nightmare, who had built a case against me that seemed unstoppable. And now, she was smiling like she already won. My name is Emma, and until a few months ago, I believed I had a normal life. A life where trust mattered, where people had your back. I had my routine, my little joys, and my faith that honesty would see me through. But then she appeared, my sister's friend, someone I'd thought was harmless, someone who, it turns out, had been quietly plotting against me. One false rumor, one fabricated story, and suddenly my reputation, my career, everything I had worked for, was on the line. And she did it with such ease, such cold precision, that I couldn't believe anyone could be that cruel. I remember the first time I realized just how far she would go. I received a call, and the voice on the other end wasn't even hers. It was someone claiming to be a lawyer, accusing me of something I didn't even understand. Panic surged through me. My thoughts were spinning. Who would believe her? How could anyone see the truth in a whirlwind of lies? I felt trapped, like I was walking blindfolded through a maze that someone else had built, and every corner hid another trap. And then, there was her sister. I had met her only a handful of times, always polite, always quiet, someone who stayed in the background. But the moment she stepped into my life during the chaos, something changed. I couldn't explain it at first. How someone so connected to the person trying to destroy me could feel like a lifeline. There was an honesty in her eyes, a warmth that made me believe maybe, just maybe, not everyone in her family was out to get me. But even as hope flickered, doubt and fear clawed at me. Could I really trust her? Was she just another part of their plan, a hidden weapon waiting to turn against me? The courtroom loomed ahead, every step echoing like a drumbeat of judgment. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered that the outcome might not be entirely in her sister's hands, that there could be a twist I didn't see coming, one that might change everything. As the doors to the courtroom opened and I walked toward my fate, I had no idea that in just a few moments, my life would be flipped upside down, and that the person who seemed the least likely to help me would become the one I'd never forget. What she did next, that's something I never expected, and it would set the stage for everything that followed. Before all this chaos, my life had been simple, or at least I thought it was. I worked at a small marketing firm, the kind where everyone knows your name and celebrates your tiny victories. I had a close circle of friends, a few trusted coworkers, and family who lived far enough away to be a phone call, but close enough to call me if things went wrong. I liked routine, and I liked believing people were generally good. That belief would cost me dearly. Her, the one who tried to ruin me, was someone I barely knew before it started. She was the sister of an acquaintance of my sister, someone who smiled too perfectly and always had a sharp remark ready. At first, I brushed it off as typical rivalry, the kind that sparks over trivial things, a comment, a misunderstanding, jealousy. But soon, I realized this wasn't trivial. She had a plan, and I was the target. Her sister, on the other hand, was completely different. If her sister radiated cold control, she radiated warmth and honesty. I remember the first time we really talked, just a casual coffee after a mutual event, but something in her manner made me feel safe, like I could finally breathe. She asked questions, not accusations, listened more than she spoke, and for the first time in weeks, I felt seen as a person, not a case file full of alleged mistakes. It was complicated, though, because her sister was still family. Could I trust someone connected to the person trying to destroy me? The thought gnawed at me constantly. Every interaction felt like a test, every word a potential trap. And yet, I couldn't shake the sense that she might be the only person who could help me untangle this mess. The situation escalated quickly. Emails, texts, and calls that should have been friendly suddenly became weapons. Little lies turned into big accusations. People I had thought were friends started pulling away, unsure who to believe. It was like watching a snowball roll down a hill. What started small became unstoppable, and I could do nothing but brace for impact. Through it all, her sister stayed close, a quiet presence that reminded me of what was real. She didn't make promises, didn't overstate her loyalty, but she did something more important. She listened, she noticed, and she acted in small but meaningful ways. Every time I felt I was losing, she would drop a hint, point me in the right direction, or just show up in ways that kept my hope alive. But the tension didn't ease. I could feel it in the way people around me whispered, in the sideways glances during meetings, and in the heavy silence when we were in public. Every step I took felt like walking on a tightrope, one misstep away from everything collapsing. And the truth was, I didn't know what her sister would do when push came to shove. Would she help me fully? Or would her family loyalty outweigh the humanity I'd begun to trust? As the court date approached, that question lingered like a shadow. The storm was coming, and I had no idea who would be standing with me when it hit. The morning of the hearing, I felt like my chest was being squeezed. Every step toward the courthouse made my stomach twist tighter. Every elevator ding echoed like a warning bell. People passed me, filing in like ants, yet all I could see was her, the woman who had spent months crafting this perfect trap. She looked calm, almost smug, like she already had the victory in her pocket. And for a moment, I wondered if anyone would believe me at all. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and anxiety. The judge's gavel sat like a silent predator, waiting to strike. My lawyer tried to reassure me, but I could see the doubt in his eyes, subtle as it was. He believed in me, he said, but even he knew how convincing her lies were. How quickly a single false accusation could topple someone's life. And then the testimony began. Every word she spoke felt like a punch to my chest. She twisted details, painted me as careless, as malicious, as someone who didn't deserve anything but punishment. I wanted to speak up, to defend myself, but every time I tried, the words caught in my throat. How could I explain the truth when the world seemed ready to accept her version instead? Her sister sat quietly to the side, her hands folded in her lap, watching. She didn't say a word, didn't give me a hint of support, but her eyes, there was something in them. A spark of understanding, a glimmer of promise. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but in that moment, it was all I had to hold on to. As the hours dragged on, confusion and fear wrapped around me like chains. Witnesses came forward, each one adding another layer of doubt, another shadow over my story. Every piece of evidence she presented seemed stronger than my defense. I felt my confidence slipping, my sense of control evaporating. Was I really going to lose everything? Then came a pause. The courtroom quieted as she leaned back, a triumphant smile on her face. And in that heartbeat of silence, I noticed something strange. Her sister standing, just slightly, almost unnoticed. She wasn't saying anything yet, but her presence felt deliberate, like a signal that things weren't exactly what they seemed. And just as my heart began to sink completely, I realized she was about to speak. But what she would reveal next, no one could have predicted it. Her sister's presence had shifted the energy in the courtroom, though no one seemed to notice yet. I could feel it. The tension had gone from suffocating to electric. Every whisper, every shuffle of papers, every deliberate pause sounded louder now, as if the room itself was holding its breath. My heart raced, my palms slick with sweat, but I clung to that tiny thread of hope her subtle stance had offered. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. My mind was a storm of fear and anticipation. I replayed every interaction I'd had with her sister, every word of encouragement, every look of quiet understanding. Could I trust her completely? Could she really be on my side? Or was this just another layer of the trap? The thought made my chest tighten, yet part of me refused to believe that someone could betray me so fully after showing such sincerity. The opposing lawyer smirked as he leaned in, presenting his next piece of evidence. It was clever, crafted to leave no room for doubt, to make me look small, careless, guilty. I could feel the eyes of the judge scanning every reaction, every twitch of my hand, every falter in my voice. My lawyer whispered reassurances, but even he seemed tense. I could see it, the worry that this case might spiral beyond our control. Then it happened. A witness came forward, someone I hadn't expected. Their words were sharp, precise, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed like the tide might turn against me even faster. My throat went dry. My vision blurred slightly as panic bubbled up. This is it, I thought. This is the end of everything I've worked for. And yet, through the chaos, her sister remained calm. Calm, but deliberate. She shifted in her seat, and for a heartbeat, our eyes met. I could feel her unspoken message, a promise that she wasn't going to let me face this alone. My stomach knotted, my fear intertwining with a fragile thread of trust that I wasn't sure I deserved to feel. The courtroom seemed to shrink around us. Every sound amplified, the scratch of a pen, the cough of an onlooker, the judge clearing his throat. The opposing lawyer leaned back, confident, smug, certain that he had won before the final bell. But something was about to crack, something no one saw coming. And then her sister stood. Not abruptly, not dramatically, but with the quiet authority of someone who knew exactly what she was about to do. The room instinctively leaned in, even if no one yet understood the significance. My pulse pounded in my ears. I couldn't predict her next move. Would she speak? Would she act? Or would all the hope I had been clinging to shatter in an instant? The air seemed to thicken. My chest ached. My mind raced. And then, just as the silence hit its peak, her sister opened her mouth. What she revealed next would change everything, turn the entire courtroom upside down, and leave everyone, including me, completely unprepared. Her sister's voice cut through the courtroom, calm but firm. She laid out facts no one had expected, evidence that completely contradicted the narrative her sister had been spinning. My heart raced as I realized the tide was turning. Finally, a chance to breathe, to fight back. Relief surged, but it was fleeting. Because just as everyone's attention snapped toward her, the courtroom doors creaked open, and another figure stepped in, someone no one had anticipated. My stomach dropped. The air shifted instantly, heavy and foreboding. This person didn't just have information. They carried a secret that threatened to undo everything her sister had done to protect me. The whispers started immediately. People glanced nervously, sensing the danger but not yet understanding it. I felt my pulse spike, my hands trembling again. I had thought the worst was behind me, that the tide had finally turned in my favor, but this new presence changed everything. I looked at her sister, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. She had prepared for almost anything, but not this. And in that split second, I realized the story was far from over. The next revelation wasn't just shocking. It would redefine everything I thought I knew about the people I trusted most. The courtroom felt like it had shrunk to the size of my racing heartbeat. Her sister stepped forward again, this time with documents, photographs, and messages she had quietly gathered, proof that exposed the lies, manipulations, and schemes that had been used to destroy me. I could barely breathe, my chest tight with fear and anticipation. Every eye in the room was on us. The opposing lawyer tried to object, but her sister's evidence was airtight. She had traced every false claim, every manipulated witness, and she did it with calm authority that left no room for argument. The smirk on her sister's rival faded, replaced by anger, disbelief, and panic. For the first time, I felt the walls of fear I'd been trapped in start to crumble. But just as relief began to wash over me, the unexpected figure from the previous twist stepped forward. They held something new, something that even her sister hadn't anticipated. It was a recording, a confession that shifted the entire narrative yet again. My stomach lurched. The courtroom held its breath. Every ounce of trust one had in her sister's plan teetered on the edge. Then, in a moment that felt surreal, her sister calmly addressed the new evidence. She had anticipated nearly everything, but this surprise was almost too much. And yet, with poise and clarity, she dismantled it piece by piece, showing how the recording had been taken out of context and how the truth still sided with me. I watched as the courtroom's energy shifted completely, from tension to stunned realization. Finally, the judge leaned back, gavel in hand. Silence blanketed the room. And then came the words I had been holding my breath for. Justice had been served. The false accusations were thrown out, my reputation restored, and the person who had tried to ruin me would face consequences of their own. I sank into my chair, exhausted but exhilarated. I looked at her sister, and our eyes met. There was relief, gratitude, and something unspoken between us. But as I was about to leave, my lawyer handed me one last envelope. Inside was a note. One sentence. A sentence that hinted this battle might not be entirely over, and that someone else had been quietly watching, waiting. The courtroom emptied slowly, people whispering and exchanging glances, but I barely noticed anyone around me. I was still processing everything that had just happened, the whirlwind of fear, betrayal, and unexpected salvation. Her sister walked beside me, quietly, like nothing had happened, but I knew better. She had been the anchor in a storm that had threatened to tear my life apart. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the street in gold and pink. It felt almost surreal, like the world had shifted into a calmer, softer place after the chaos inside. I inhaled deeply, feeling the tension in my shoulders finally release. For the first time in months, I could breathe freely. Her sister turned to me and smiled, not in triumph, but in quiet reassurance. "You deserve this," she said simply. And in that moment, I realized something profound. Sometimes justice isn't just about proving who's right or wrong. Sometimes, it's about the people who stand with you when everything seems lost. The people who see the truth when no one else will. We walked a few blocks together, talking about mundane things, coffee, work, little stories about family. It was almost normal, almost ordinary, and yet it felt extraordinary. I laughed at a small joke she made, and it hit me how much I had missed this kind of connection, honest, gentle, and free from suspicion. Over the next few days, life began to settle into a rhythm again. Friends returned, hesitant at first, but ultimately relieved that the nightmare had ended. My career, once teetering on the edge, regained stability. And through it all, her sister remained quietly present, a reminder that kindness and courage can come from the most unexpected places. But the envelope, the one my lawyer had handed me after the trial, still sat on my desk. I hadn't opened it until a quiet evening when the house was still. Inside was a single note. "Some battles end, but not all. Stay aware, stay strong." I felt a shiver, a mix of curiosity and caution. Life had given me a reprieve, yes, but it also reminded me that vigilance, trust, and courage are ongoing journeys. And as I folded the note and placed it back in the envelope, I realized something even more important. It wasn't just about surviving the fight. It was about recognizing the people who make survival possible, the ones who love, protect, and believe in you even when the world doesn't. Her sister had given me that, and it was a gift I would never forget. Walking to my window, watching the city lights flicker to life, I allowed myself a rare moment of gratitude. Life could be cruel, yes, but it could also surprise you, heal you, and even restore your faith in humanity when you least expected it. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew the story wasn't completely over, but for now, justice, love, and a quiet hope were enough.